Roger Stone says he's prepared to fight for his life following his arrest after being indicted on Friday by Robert Mueller. So here is what Stone is saying about talking to the special counsel's investigators.
There's no circumstance under which I would testify against the president because I'd have to bear false witness against him. I'd have to make things up. There is no circumstance whatsoever under which I will bear false witness against the president, nor will I make up lies to ease the pressure on myself.
Any chance you'll cooperate with Special Counsel Robert Mueller if he asks?
That's a question I'd have to determine after my attorneys have some discussion. If there's wrongdoing by other people in the campaign that I know about, which I know of none, but if there is, I would certainly testify honestly.
All right, joining us now is Ann Milgram. She was New Jersey's Attorney General, and Shan Wu. He has been a defense attorney and federal prosecutor. Oh, and a special cameo from his audio guy. Thank you guys both for being here. Ann, that's hardly a bold statement. I'm not going to lie for the president. I'm not going to bear false witness. I think that he's trying to have it both ways. He's pretending that he would never to speak to investigators or testify against the president, but then he's saying, I just won't lie. There's a way to tell the truth and speak to investigators.
Well, there's two things to note. First of all, he is under indictment for lying. For lying 5 times. There's also obstructing justice and tampering with a witness. And the second piece is to cooperate. It's not just about talking about other people. You have to be honest about yourself and what you've done. And there's absolutely no evidence that he can do that in this case. So I don't think he's going to get that call to be a cooperator.
Talk about lying. I think that's the most interesting thing. And, we're sort of day 3 into the Roger Stone indictments here. And the Washington Post put all of this in really stark perspective for me, where they did a story yesterday and they pointed out just how many people connected to the president have lied about Russia. And many of them have been indicted for it and charged with it, or convicted in some cases. Michael Cohen, Paul Manafort, Michael Flynn, all convicted. George Papadopoulos convicted for lying. Rick Gates convicted for lying about Russia. And now Roger Stone charged with lying about Russia. It's a lot of lies.
It's a lot of lies.
And it begs the question, which is not answered, by the way, in any of the indictments as far as I can tell, why? Why were they lying? How important is the why here?
I think we've always been asking this question, and we're still asking it. And Stone's indictment gives us a lot more information, but there are still unanswered questions about why the president and why the president's campaign got involved with Russia in the first place and then told all these lies about it. I can tell you, we know there's a motivation to lie because everybody who's part of this organization has not been truthful. They've lied to Congress. They've lied to federal investigators. The arrogance of that and thinking you'd get away with it is really stunning. And at this level and the amount we've seen, it's something I haven't seen before in many criminal cases.
Shan, where are you on all of this and what Roger Stone's indictment and arrest on Friday means?
Well, I think one thing that's important for us to remember is there's a lot of effort to kind of figure out if there's some sort of cryptic message that Mueller's sending with these different kinds of indictments. Can we weave it all together? If you put all that aside, this is a virtual vivisection of an administration. The top aides have all been charged and in many cases convicted with lying and obstructing, and all about the same topic. So certainly the curiosity is great. Why do they want to protect it so much? But just on its face, this is a devastating vivisection of an administration. For Stone, I think it's one step closer to finding the possibility of the conspiracy. I think he has a lot of bravado right now, but easy to be brave in the courthouse steps, not so tough if you're sitting in the cell.
But there is no charge on conspiracy to defraud the government, Shan. If you look at the charge, there's no charge there, and no charge in terms of Russia against anyone else on that front either. Would you have expected to see it by this point if it was going to come at all?
Not necessarily. If they had it already, certainly. I don't think they would be holding it back. But they could be developing that aspect of the investigation. And I think one thing that is very different about the Stone indictment that we're beginning to see is the eagerness of the administration. Even if they don't get to that cooperation, they seem as though they really want to have the cooperation. And that's very telling in and of itself.
And I just want to go back to Friday for a second because you were on with us as all of the drama was unfolding of Roger Stone's arrest. And we saw the FBI raid show up there in the cover of darkness, pre-dawn. And what we were talking about that morning was to go to that length. It was such a different arrest than we had seen in, say, the Paul Manafort case. It must have been that investigators believed that he either had a weapon or that he was a flight risk. That's generally how they calculate those things. Because otherwise, as you heard over the weekend, he has said it was overkill. So many of his supporters have said, what were they doing? This is such overkill. Where are you today on this?
So there's 2 points to be made here. First of all, on Friday, we didn't actually know that they were executing a search warrant. And it's now been publicly reported that they executed a search warrant at his home in Florida and at his residence in New York. That does happen frequently in the middle of the morning with the FBI showing up at your door. Why? Because they don't want you to destroy evidence. And they want to make sure they secure everything. So that's really important.
Even with weapons?
Even with weapons. That, and the second point, which I think is really important, is you make a decision. Does someone turn themselves in? Or are you going to essentially show up with a search warrant for their house and for their arrest without notice? Once you've made that second decision, there's a standard operating procedure that was followed. This is not out of the norm. It feels very strange for us, but remember that officer safety is paramount. They have no idea what they're going to find when they get to a house, so they always behave with the utmost caution, with weapons, with bulletproof vests. That's a standard approach for this kind of situation. The big question I think we had was, why would they do this here? And it's clear, and I think really important, they think that there's additional evidence in Stone's possession that could be helpful in either his case or other cases.
And Josh Campbell, who worked for the FBI, said it's actually the white-collar defendants who destroy the evidence the most quickly. That's always where the biggest concern is. So if that is your concern, they say, and look, I don't have any experience with this, that's why you go in like that, to keep them from destroying anything if they have the time. Shan, back to the what's next and who else might need to worry. There is a discussion here if the Roger Stone indictments mean that Robert Mueller's done. Is this the last of the indictments that we will see before the report? And if so, you know, the universe of other people who could be charged before the Mueller report, there are those who have suggested, well, Donald Trump Jr., where is the case against him? Should he breathe a sigh of relief this morning?
I don't think he should be breathing a sigh of relief. I think those who have not yet been interviewed by Mueller's team generally still have something to worry about. And I think to Ann's point, the search warrants are really important here, because looking at whether the investigation is concluded or not, the real target here was the electronic evidence, I think, and that may yield a great deal, which they may investigate further and which ultimately may cause Stone to change his mind about whether he wants to cooperate. Notice he said he won't bear false testimony, not that he won't bear any testimony at all. And of course, if that evidence yields valuable benefit for the investigation, then they'll have something to talk to him about. So I don't think this indicates that we're in the final days of the investigation.
All right, Shan Wu and Milgram, thank you very much.
Good to see you.
You too. Saturday night.